Episode 114.
The battle
The
for
battle.
your soul.
Oh, I like that. That sounds aggressive. The battle for my soul. Good versus evil?
Not good versus evil. So today we are talking about being driven versus being content.
Ooh.
Yeah. So so let me ask you this, Jerrod. We framed this to be being driven versus being content. And what I like to do before we go into them is to define these terms
Okay.
because words words are powerful, and it's very powerful to know exactly what they mean. So what does being driven mean to you?
To me, being driven would be having goals, knowing what path you're on, and setting kind of a course for achievement and attaining something, whether it's material things, knowledge-based things, a spiritual, your work in your spiritual realm, whatever it is. It means you're moving towards something and you're focused on a goal. To me, that's what I think of when I hear about driven. What do you think?
I agree. I like to look at the Google definition, right? The collective definition, and the definition was pretty much what you said from Google is of a person, in parentheses, of a person, relentlessly compelled by the need to accomplish a goal, very hardworking and ambitious. So, we seem to have the same definition as Google, the collective definition there. What about contentment?
Contentment's interesting to me because I think it gets mislabeled a lot, and I think people use it in the wrong context, and we'll get into that through the episode. But to me, content is being at peace. If I just put it, it's most simple. When I'm content, I'm at peace, and that's that's a goal. Like I work towards that all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess that's what I say. Just contentment is just having peace. What do you think?
Same. Same thing, like of being pleased is kind of what I think of just like being pleased with your situation, with your environment, or in a state of just pleasantness. Google says a state of happiness and satisfaction. So now that we have the clear definitions out of the way, you and I, as well as Google, so we'll assume most people, the majority of the collective, have the same definitions for being driven and contentment. Now let's talk about the battle, because these are two deep soul feelings that we all experience throughout life. So what do you think, Jerrod? Can we be both in life, driven and content?
I think that's that's the battle, right? And a place where a lot of us struggle because I think you mentioned it in a previous episode, and we've talked about it before. The modern mantra of embrace the grind, embrace the suck, grinding away, and all this idea that to be driven and to get where you want to go requires an inordinate amount of work, and it requires so much sacrifice, and it requires all hours of the day, and personal relationships go by the wayside so you can focus on whatever it is you're trying to obtain. And to me, what we've found is a lot of times people get there, they didn't enjoy the journey, and the destination isn't what they thought it would be. Right? We look at how many millionaires and movie stars and all these people that have an abundance of wealth and monetary things in their life are extremely unhappy, and I think it's because they haven't found contentment along the way. And I think not only can you be both, but I think you should be both. Because to me, when I think of the big challenges in my life, and I think of the things I was really driven to achieve, when I stop to appreciate the journey, that's contentment. Doesn't mean I don't want to go further, but just means I'm going to stop for a minute and enjoy where I'm at. Look back and see how far I've come. It gives me appreciation, right? That to me is the balance, right? Not always being so driven that I never stop to slow down and see the people in my life and the places we're going and the things we've experienced, but I'm so focused on only getting where I want to be that I miss all that, right? So not only do I think they can be, but I think we're much happier if we allow them both to be.
Mm.
You know, I mean, have you ever been on, you ever had a vacation or, you know, a road trip and you're so focused on just getting from here to there. I'm just going to drive as fast as I can, as many hours as I can. I'm only going to stop for gas and gas station, you know, food. And then you get there and you're exhausted, and you didn't stop anywhere to see all these historical sites along the way. You didn't stop to experience anything. So you get there, and yeah, you made it to your destination, but what did you learn? What did you experience on the way? And to me, when we slow down to be content for a second and look around, it makes us much happier, which in turn allows you to drive harder and further on.
I have, yeah. Admittedly, I don't really stop during road trips. I'm very
Yeah, most
like,
of
let's
us
go.
don't. Yeah, most of us don't. And what happens though, right? Like, gosh, somebody was talking about this the other day, right? Like interstates. Interstates are fantastic to get you from a point to another point as fast as they can. But you will learn nothing about the people that make up those communities on the interstate. Right? Like you don't learn anything. But now if you get off and take the side road, maybe it takes you a little longer to get there, but you actually learn something, you experience something. So, I mean, to me, that's kind of what I think of, and that's one of the goals in life, right? Yeah, maybe it's slower to get there, right? Maybe the interstate's much faster. But if you get there, what have you missed on the way, right? Like training for your fights. Training for our fights. When we fight, we're so focused on the fight night. We train for 8 weeks, 6 weeks, hard every day, multiple workouts a day. But usually, what's that feeling after the fight? When the fight's over the next day, how do you feel?
Mixed. You feel a lot of things, at least for me.
Yeah, mixed. But what is one of the things you miss?
Training.
You missed the exact process. Why? Because that was actually the funnest part. The fight is actually so short, and you missed the routine, the being around the guys, the coaching, the pushing harder. But you can only miss that when you look back and go, man, look how far I came. Right? So to me, like one of the big things after a fight is kind of that emotional letdown, because your routine, like you don't have to do it anymore if you don't want to. You never have to work out again.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look back, you're like, man, that was the memories.
Yeah. Do you think, Jerrod, that a lot of people feel that being driven and content as in life are exclusive to each other?
I think they're sold that, right? Think about it. I think it it benefits certain people if I convince you that being content is lazy, that being content is soft, and that if you're content, somebody else is going to get further ahead of you. So grind away, work all your days, right? Because I want you in the rat race. I want you consuming. I want you pushing whatever it is that your work produces. I want you to do more of that.
Yeah.
Contentment, right? And I think this is a misconception we have. Sometimes we think if I stop for a minute, like you always say, big breath. Well, when you're breathing, what is it? It's putting you in the moment, right? Gratitude, what does it do? It lets you see all the stuff you have. That's a form of contentment. And when I see all that, maybe I realize I don't want to drive that hard anymore. Or maybe I don't want to go so fast to get to this destination that my kids don't know who I am at the end of it. Right? We talked about earlier how many people work many, many years in a career to retire and they die or get a health issue quickly after retiring. Right? Why is that? Because they don't have anything to fill that void. And to me, a lot of times that's because they're so driven, so solely focused on their careers, on work, that there's really nothing else there for them.
But there is.
Only if they're aware of it, right? And only if they stop to see it. And I think that's the battle we have, is being driven in life, but also being content with what we've already accomplished.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Just the other day, I had one of our first episodes come on. It was like maybe like episode 15 or 16. It was when we first started the podcast, and I was listening to you, and you were in a very different place in life, to where you were still very driven in the career realm, to where in recent episodes you've been sharing that your drive has been more focused on internal things, on relationship and family. So you haven't lost the drive, so to speak. You retired from your police career, but your drive, I would say, yeah, you still have drive for, the podcast and your business, but your primary drive, at least from what I have observed, has been more relationship based, more internal based. And I think sometimes we confuse drive to have to be worldly goals, career goals, to where you can have the drive, like you say, of every morning you tell yourself that you're going to look for the greatness in every person that you come across, right? Like you're driven in these ways. And I think that this battle for balance is a key to living a purposeful life, is to be driven and content synonymously.